So, today we're going to talk about the impacts of inflation. Now that we know what it is, why is it important? And how does it impact us? And to start with that, we're going to talk about the relationship between inflation and real income. So, what it comes down to is purchasing power. How much stuff can we buy with our money? And is our ability to buy stuff increasing or decreasing? So, the first reason that inflation can be problematic is as prices are rising, if our income doesn't rise at the same pace, we're going to be able to buy less stuff and our standard of living is going to go down. And nobody wants that. Nobody wants to continue working and year to year be able to buy less stuff. And then the second part of this is surprise inflation. And this is the idea that uh, we put our money in different places, different investments, different savings options. And the expectation is that we're going to make more money than the rate of inflation, right? Nobody's going to put their money into an investment and at the end of the day think, oh, if I take my money out in 10 years and I'm able to buy less stuff, that's okay. We want to put our money in places uh, that's going to allow us to buy more stuff in the future. And unanticipated inflation hurts those chances because we may have put our money into an investment place that gives a return of 4% per year because inflation's been low and slow, like 1 to 2%. And then all of a sudden, there's a 10% inflation, crazy inflation, and that's going to erode our purchasing power. So, to increase our purchasing power, yearly income has to increase more than prices are increasing. Our income's got to go up at a faster rate than inflation. If income rises slower than the rate of inflation, we're going to lose purchasing power. Now, we want to calculate this. In order to be as accurate as possible, we need to look at the difference between nominal income and real income. Nominal income is what we get, or I'm sorry, it's what we see. The number of dollars, wages, rent, interest, profit. Real income is the purchasing power. What can you buy with your income? And just to calculate this, real income is nominal income divided by price index in hundreds. If you remember, this is the same way we got real GDP from nominal GDP. Anytime you're looking for real, it's just nominal divided by the price index. So, while inflation can reduce purchasing power, it doesn't necessarily decrease our real income. So, if inflation is equal to our nominal income, our real income doesn't change. It remains the exact same. Our If prices go up 6% and our nominal income goes up 6%, we're no worse off than we were before. We can effectively buy the same amount of stuff. If inflation rate is greater than the increase in nominal income, that's where we're going to see a decrease in our real income. If inflation goes up 6%, nominal income goes up 2%, our real income is going to fall 4%. We can effectively buy 4% less stuff. If inflation rate is less than the increase in nominal income, this is what we want. Inflation goes up 6%, our nominal income goes up 10%. Well, here our real income actually went up 4%. So, the way I look at this is what can we really buy is what's in our paycheck minus inflation rate. So, increase our the percent change in nominal income minus the percent change in the price level gives us our percent change in real income. And remember, anytime you are trying to calculate percent change, it's going to be that rate of change formula, new minus old divided by old times 100 to get that percent. We can also look at this, it doesn't just have to be income, we can also do it with wages. Nominal wage is the amount of money received per hour per day. A real wage is the quantity of goods and services that you can obtain with your nominal wage. So we can do the same thing. Percent change in real wage is percent change in nominal minus percent change in price level. So if you get an 8% increase in your nominal wage and price levels increase by 5%, really your real wage has gone up 3%. We can do the same with GDP. Nominal GDP went up 10%, inflation went up 4%, well, then real GDP went up 6%. So let's talk about nominal and real interest rates and the Fisher effect. So, interest rates, I had a professor in college who said, think of interest rates as the cost of borrowing money. The interest rates you pay on a loan, that's what you're paying, the cost you take to borrow that money. When you get an interest rate that comes back to you from savings, say you put your money in a savings account, uh, the bank is paying you the interest rate and they're paying you their cost to borrow your money, because that's really what savings is you're giving the bank, you're lending the bank your money and they're going to do different things with it, and they pay you for that. So in order to understand the deal between you and the bank, we have to understand uh, interest rates and inflation. So here's an example. Sally Saver deposits $1,000 into a bank account. It pays an annual interest rate of 10%. A year later, she got $100 in interest. She takes out $1,100. Is she $100 richer? Well, she has $100 more than she started with, but is she richer? Well, it depends on what's happened to prices. Let's say Sally likes CDs, and when she made her deposit, a CD cost $10. So she could have purchased 100 CDs with that $1,000. A year later, now the question is how many CDs she can buy with her $1,100. If there was zero inflation, prices were still $10 a CD, she can buy 10% more CDs, 110 CDs. Let's say there's 6% inflation. Well, now prices are gone up to $10.60. She can buy about 104 CDs. Her purchasing power increased 4%. If there was 10% inflation, the price went up to $11. She can still buy 100 CDs after the end of the year. She's no better off. Her purchasing power is the exact same. But let's say there was 12% inflation. Now, she actually can buy less CDs than she could before she put her money in the bank for that year. And if there's deflation, prices falling, that's always helpful for a consumer. Then we see that she can buy 112 CDs. Her purchasing power went up 12%, right? Her income went up, or she got a 10% rate of return plus the 2% deflation, 12%. So to know if Sally gets a good deal on her interest rate, we really have to know what's going on with inflation. If inflation exceeds the rate of interest, her purchasing power is going to fall. If there's deflation, purchasing power is going to rise by more than that rate of interest. And here's kind of the example with a hammer. If you just put your money under the mattress, you're not going to make any return on investment. If you invested at 5% and there's inflation at 3%, you're always going to be able to buy that hammer. So to understand this, if we're looking at nominal inflation and inflation, we also have to understand nominal versus real interest rates. So the interest rate that measures the change in dollar amounts is the nominal interest rate. This is what your bank tells you. How fast is your money going to rise over time? Say if you put your money into a savings account and they say you've got a 2% interest rate. That's your nominal interest rate. You go to a car dealership, you take out a loan and they say, 4% interest rate. That's the nominal interest rate. The real interest rate is the rate of interest expressed in purchasing power. So dollars of inflation adjusted value. So to correct nominal for inflation, That gives us real interest rate, and that's going to be nominal interest rate minus the rate of inflation. So if the bank says you've got a nominal interest rate of 7% and inflation's 3%, well, actually, your deposit will grow at about 4% per year. This is important to know because we always want to be putting our money in places where it's going to grow, where we're going to be able to buy more at the end of that period than at the beginning. So here you can see real interest rate is nominal minus inflation rate, and nominal is real interest rate plus the inflation rate. This shows real and nominal interest rates since 1965. And this is the nominal interest rate on a 3-month treasury bill. And the real interest rate, you can see how they move. Nominal is going to be higher than real. This reflects that in the past, we have had inflation. We have had rising prices every year during this period. We did not have deflation at any point between 1965 and 2005. So the Fisher effect is named for Irving Fisher, and it refers to the fact that when inflation rates rise, so do nominal interest rates. And this is a long run perspective. It doesn't necessarily hold in the short run because there is some unanticipated inflation. Nominal interest rates are typically set when a loan's made. So if all of a sudden there's a jump of inflation and it catches people by surprise, the nominal interest rate that they agree on isn't going to have that higher inflation rate in there. But if inflation remains high, people expect it, the loan agreement that people make with their banks is going to increase. So what Fisher effect says is that nominal interest rate is going to adjust to expected inflation. Here you can see the association between nominal interest rate and inflation, and you can see they very much work together. Nominal interest rate fell from the early 80s through the 90s because the Fed got inflation under control. Remember, there was crazy inflation in the late 70s. So suppose the nominal interest rate and the rate of inflation are both 10%. You borrow $100, you have to pay back $110 a year from now. But at the end of that period, that money is worth less. So when you pay back the $110, it's going to buy the same amount that the $100 could buy before the loan. So when the nominal interest rate is 10% and there's 10% inflation, the real interest rate is 0.